Welcome back to another episode of Perkins Pipes. Got the collegiate stuff on today. Got the good old Peterson Professor pipe because, folks, we are going to be talking about actually something of a problem regarding our universities and one that is easily fixed. So as always, let's get this guy lit. Let's get to talking. Got some of this delicious Lane RLP 6 in the bowl here. Man, I love this stuff. I've really been enjoying it since I discovered it at a brick and mortar store in Lafayette, Indiana, called Crossroads Cigar. Back in November of 2024, a friend sent me an article from The Atlantic, which I printed out. It's titled, "The Elite College Students Who Can't Read Books." Subtitle is, To Read a Book in College, It Helps to Have Read a Book in High School. Actually came out October the 1st, the November issue of the magazine. And if you will indulge me, what I'd like to do is just read you some excerpts. You can see we got some stuff highlighted here. Let me just read you a little bit, if you don't mind. And then we're going to get to talking about this. You see, it's not that college students cannot read, but more it seems that they will not read. Nicholas Dames has taught literature humanities, Columbia University's Required Great Books course, since 1998. He loves the job, but it has changed. Over the past decade, students have become overwhelmed by the reading. College kids have never read everything they're assigned, of course, but this feels different. This development puzzled Dames until one day during the fall 2022 semester, when a first-year student came to his office hours to share how challenging she had found the early assignment. Lit Hume often requires students to read a book, sometimes a very long and dense one, in just a week or two. But the student told Dames that at her public high school, she had never been required to read an entire book. She had been assigned excerpts, poetry, and news articles, but not a single book cover to cover. No comprehensive data exist on the trend, but the majority of the 33 professors I spoke with relayed similar experiences. Anthony Grafton, a Princeton historian, said his students arrive on campus with a narrower vocabulary and less understanding of language than they used to have. Daniel Shore, the chair of Georgetown's English department, told me his students have trouble staying focused on even a sonnet. Failing to complete a 14-line poem without succumbing to distraction suggests one familiar explanation for the decline in reading aptitude: smartphones. But middle school and high school kids appear to be encountering fewer and fewer books in the classroom as well. For more than 2 decades, new educational initiatives such as No Child Left Behind and Common Core emphasized informational texts and standardized tests. Teachers at many schools shifted from books to short informational passages, followed by questions about the author's main idea, mimicking the format of standardized reading comprehension tests. Antero Garcia, a Stanford education professor, is completing his term as vice president of the National Council of Teachers of English. Previously taught at a public school in Los Angeles, he told me the new guidelines were intended to help students make clear arguments in synthesized text, but, quote, in doing so, we've sacrificed young people's ability to grapple with long-form text in general. Michael Skolska, a teacher and administrator who spent almost 2 decades in Boston and New York schools, told me that excerpts have replaced books across grade levels. There's no testing skill that can be related to, can you sit down and read Tolstoy, he said. And if a skill is not easily measured, instructors and district leaders have little incentive to teach it. One public high school teacher in Illinois told me she used to structure her classes around books, but now focuses on skills, such as how to make good decisions. In a unit about leadership, students read parts of Homer's Odyssey and supplement it with music, articles, and TED Talks. The issue that dames and other professors have observed is that students struggle to muster the attention or ambition required to immerse themselves in a substantial text. Victoria Kahn, who's taught literature at UC Berkeley since 1997, used to assign 200 pages each week. Now she assigns less than half of that. I don't do the whole Iliad. I assign books of the Iliad. Some experts I spoke with attributed the decline of book reading to a shift in values rather than in skill sets. Students can still read books, they argue, they're just choosing not to. Students today are far more concerned about their job prospects than they were in the past. I'm going to come back to that point in a moment. Books can cultivate a sophisticated form of empathy, transporting a reader into the mind of someone who lived hundreds of years ago, or a person who lives in a radically different context from the reader's own. Reading is complicated, so it enlarges your sympathies. Yet such benefits require staying with the character through their journey. They cannot be approximated by reading a 5 or even 30-page excerpt. According to neuroscientist Marianne Wolf, whom I highly recommend you read, so-called deep reading, sustained immersion in a text, stimulates a number of valuable mental habits, including critical thinking and self-reflection, in ways that skimming and reading in short bursts does not. And the author concludes, there is a reason that despite millennia of reinterpretations, we've never forgotten the originals. To understand the human condition, and to appreciate humankind's greatest achievements, you still need to read the Iliad. All of it. Okay, so that was a rapid read through. So let's talk about this a little bit. We're not going to go off on smartphones. That's not what this one's about. We're going to talk about reading. And I know some of you out there like to get your books via audiobook, but I do really want to focus on eyeball reading. Traditionally, what we would think of when we think of reading. We're not doing our children any good service by having them read, as they say, just excerpts, little articles, informational texts. There's something to be gained by reading the full novel. I remember reading Crime and Punishment in high school. I remember reading Dracula in high school. I remember reading The Scarlet Letter. And a few years ago, I had, we got some wind kicking up here. I had the opportunity to teach as an adjunct professor a course in Greek literature at Butler University in Indianapolis. And on the syllabus was the entire Iliad. Not excerpts from it, but the entire thing. There's one thing, though, that was mentioned, and I want to come back to it. So students today are far more concerned about their job prospects than they were in the past. Folks, everybody's got to have a job. There's no question about that, and that's appropriate. You got to have a job. And that's important. We're not arguing that. But there is more to a collegiate education than that. I want to pull up something that I read with my students. And these are high school students, mind you. The Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote a series of epistles or philosophical letters to a friend of his named Lucilius. And in Epistle 88, he says, and I'm looking right here at the Latin text, He says, nullum suspicio, nullum in bonis numero quod ad eis exit. He says, I don't respect anything. He says, I don't count anything among the good which leads to money. Before you go say, well, that's just pie in the sky talk. I mean, come on, we need money to live. Yes, we do. But he goes on from there, and he explains what he really means here. He says, for example, hoc me doce, teach me this. Quomodo patriam amem, how I may love my country. Quomodo uxorem, how I may love my wife. Quomodo patriam, how I may love my father. Quomodo ad haectam honesta vel naufragus navigam, how I may sail toward these things that are so honorable and not get shipwrecked. Tire me gerometres docet latifundia. He says, the mathematician teaches me how to divide up my farm. Quid mihi prodescire agelum in partes dividere. He says, how does it benefit me to know how to divide a parcel up into parts? Si nescio cum fratre dividere. If I do not know how to share it with my brother. He goes on to say, everybody works really hard to get the title of, literate man or educated man. He says, simus hoc titulo rusticiore contenti. Let us be content with a more humble title. O virum bonum. O good man. All right. He's not saying we don't need money. And we're not saying that you need to get out of college and not have any useful skills. All right, that's ridiculous. Nobody's saying it. What we're saying is there's more to life than just that. There's more to life, and specifically a collegiate education. And I know that some people watching this channel, you've had a collegiate education. Some of you have not had a collegiate education. But I am specifically talking about that, the university level education, and it's about more than merely earning a living. I've mentioned this before, I'm pretty sure. My maternal grandmother, she graduated high school, which was a big deal in 1928. Small town, Indiana. She took a couple of business college classes, but she never went to college, and she spent a lot of her life as a bank teller. But boy, she read. She read on her own, full books. And as she always used to say, books can take me anywhere. So there's several things to be said here. First of all, there is quite frankly, a challenge to my kind. Those of us who teach at the secondary level, high school level. We've got to bring back the reading of full poems and full novels and long epic poems. We've got to bring that back because it is a challenge, but it's a necessary one to develop that stay with it thinking, tracking a character over tens and hundreds of pages and multiple chapters and tracing the character arc. You can't get that from an excerpt. It helps you go deeper into a character and the way of thinking. 2, strongly encourage you, if you are a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle and you are around young children, I would say quite honestly probably 12 and under, read to them at bedtime, and especially chapter books where it's one chapter a night and the book may take you a week or 2 to get through. Oh, but friends, it's such fun, it's such good time to spend with a child in that way. And it's introducing them to the long form of reading and keeping track of details over an extended period of time and developing that way of thinking. And finally, friends, and I know there's several of you who you emailed me, you've messaged me on this channel. You love to read, and you've started reading more as an adult than you did when you were in high school. And all what I say is, folks, better late to the party than to never come at all. Do it. Enjoy. Get back into it. And it may take you a while if you haven't read for a while. In which case, I would say don't pick up the biggest novel around, right? I mean, don't pick up the Iliad or the Odyssey or the Aeneid or War and Peace or something like this. Go start with a smaller novel. And there's tons of lists online. Maybe one day I'll do a list of some books that I think are worth reading, but start with something smaller and work up to it. There is a satisfaction in reading a complete book all the way through. There's a satisfaction in putting it down when you're tired and, hey, that's all I'm going to read for tonight, and know that I'm going to come back to it tomorrow. There's been times I have thought during the day, ooh, I can't wait to get home because I get to go back to the book that I've been reading and pick it up where I was. So talk to us a little bit about reading, folks. We're back on reading again. Talk to us. Did you read full books when you were in high school? If you went to college, went to university, did you read any full books? We're talking fiction here. We're not talking nonfiction. We are talking fiction. What are your children or your grandchildren's experiences in high school today? Do you know? What are they reading? What do they have to read? And if I may ask, what are you reading right now? What are you reading right now? Now, as of the recording of this video, I'm going to say two things. As of the recording of this video, I am over halfway through G.K. Chesterson's biography of St. Thomas Aquinas, which I'm loving very, very much. That's nonfiction. And I am eager because the new Craig Johnson novel in the Longmire series, you've heard me speak about that on this channel before, the fictional Western sheriff Walt Longmire, his new novel is coming out here, and I think in just a couple of weeks, and you know I'm going to get that, and man, I cannot wait to get back into that novel. So, folks, we'd love to hear from you on this topic. As Malcolm Guite, who is a literary guy, along with being a pipe smoker, likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ago ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.